When we say I do, we bring more than just love into a marriage. We bring our past. That said, what happens when the past is shaped by dysfunctional family trauma? What happens? Can love alone heal the wounds, or do unresolved patterns sabotage the relationship?
Hello, welcome to another episode of Marriage Hacks with Joseph
And Miriam.
with real talk
Real solutions.
for a healthy, thriving marriage.
Now, the term dysfunctional family trauma refers to the emotional and physiological wounds that rise from growing up in a family environment that is marked by unhealthy patterns such as abuse, neglect, addiction, poor communication, or excessive control. These experiences can create long-term effects on a person's self-worth, emotional regulation, and the ability to form healthy relationships. When someone grows up in an environment such as what we talked about, they may develop coping mechanisms that can later affect their adult relationships, which includes marriage. Without healing and self-awareness, patterns from a dysfunctional childhood can lead to challenges in trust, communication, and emotional intimacy.
All right, so like we always do, we're gonna go over our scriptures. Now this time we have just two scriptures, and the first one is Ephesians 6:1-4, and it says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you, and that you may live long in the land. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord." All right, so we're going to go to the next one. All right, so this is Luke 12, verses 51-53, and it says, "Suppose that I am come to give peace on earth. Suppose ye that I am come to give peace on earth. I tell you, nay, but rather division. For from henceforth there shall be 5 in one house divided, 3 against 2, 2 against 3. The father shall be divided against the son, and the son against the father, and the mother against the daughter, and the daughter against the mother-in-law against her daughter-in-law, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law." That's a lot of against and dividing and division.
Yes.
All right, let me go back to this main screen. All right, so let's take a look at Samson's family and marital dysfunction. And because God brought Samson up in my spirit as I was preparing for this episode. Samson's marriage to a Philistine woman was dysfunctional because he didn't listen to his parents' advice, and he married someone who betrayed him. Okay? How it started, Samson fell in love with a Philistine woman and wanted to marry her. Samson's parents warned him against marrying the woman, but he ignored them. Samson didn't consult the Lord before marrying the woman. During their wedding feast, Samson's wife betrayed him by choosing her people over him. Samson's wife divulged the answer to a riddle he told the Philistines. Samson's marriage seemed to go from bad to worse. Samson's life turned against his wife turned against him. And why it was dysfunctional? Samson's marriage was dysfunctional because he didn't listen to his parents' advice, and he married someone who betrayed him. Samson's marriage was also dysfunctional because he didn't put his wife's needs before his own. What this teaches us, this story teaches that a bad marriage can serve a purpose in God's plan. It also teaches that we should date people who share our faith and listen to godly input from people who know us well.
Okay, how to have a successful marriage despite dysfunctional family trauma. Overcoming dysfunctional family trauma in a marriage is possible, but it requires self-awareness, intentional effort, and a willingness to break unhealthy cycles. Here's how to build a thriving marriage despite past wounds. Okay, we have 10 points here. 1, acknowledge the trauma. Oh, that's very important. I don't like that screen, Joe. My hair looks wild. Okay. 2, open and honest communication. 3, set boundaries. 4, practice self-awareness. 5, seek therapy, both individually and together. 6, rewrite the narrative. Oh, I'm a big proponent of that. 7, prioritize emotional intimacy. 8, practice patience and grace. 9, cultivate a support system. And 10, pray and invite God into the process.
Amen. You have to have God in there.
Yes.
God is number one.
Okay, first of all, acknowledge the trauma. You can't heal from something that you don't recognize. Take time to reflect on how your upbringing affects your beliefs about love, trust, and conflict. Understand that your past pain does not have to dictate your future. We told you about in painful detail when we got back from our cruise, our 35th anniversary cruise, that very day there was a conflict, and I truly felt that Joe had betrayed me. And I told you about how I started taking the Healing Hearts class at church, and how that helped me recognize trauma. And it made me understand why it hurt me, why it triggered me. There have been several times, well, not a whole bunch of times. I don't want you to think that he's just this awful person. But there have been at least 5 or 6 times in our 30 going on 7 years together that Joe has triggered me. And many times it had absolutely nothing to do. It was just Joe being Joe. But because I had that unresolved trauma, I gave him hell. So you have to acknowledge that trauma. And that's why getting help is so important, because trauma is not just one particular incident. It can be one incident compounded by another situation of the same type of incident. And what you do is you just push it further and further and further and further till it almost disappears. But one thing that we all know, or we should know, that living things don't stay buried. Mm-hmm. One way or another, they are going to claw their way to the top. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times when it does that, it doesn't just claw its way to the top, but it bursts or busts, however you want to say it, out of that grave that you thought you put it in. It's going to go, and it's going to spill all over everything and everyone.
And one thing that you have to realize is that we all suffer from trauma.
Yes, we do. No matter what kind of family we came from.
And some people are just better at managing their emotions
Or masking.
or than others. We all need to be delivered or healed from that trauma. And the more we get, the deeper we get into this episode, we're gonna see, we're gonna learn about a major root cause of trauma and why we hold on to it so long. Okay, there's a spiritual aspect for sure. But there's also a scientific and physical aspect to trauma. Okay. Okay, Miriam, that's all I want to say. I didn't want to say too much.
Okay, and one thing that I have dealt with, as much as I loved my babies and as hard as Joe and I tried, our kids have issues. We've talked about that. Everybody has their issues. Okay. Communicate open and honestly. Healthy communication is the foundation of any successful marriage. Is something we've talked about. Share your experiences with your spouse. Express how certain triggers or behaviors affect you. Let your partner into your healing journey. One incident that happened, it's been more than 20 years ago because we've been at Central Triad for going on 15 years. When we were at Agape Faith Church in Clemens, they were talking about the Big Brother, Big Sister program. And Joe was like, I'm going to sign up for that. I'm going to be a big brother. And I was like, no, the hell you ain't. I looked at him, I said, we got 4 kids at home that need you. Once they are grown and they are gone, you can big brother all you want. And he just kind of looked at me. He's like, well, Miriam, I'm not your mama and I'm not this. And I was like, but you ain't gonna do it. And that trigger came from when I was growing up. Mama paid so much attention to other people, other kids, and other kids' issues. And we owned a store in our basement in the 70s. And so the neighborhood kids were always in and out of their house. And there would be times when Mama would give to other kids when I needed something. And I always said, no, my kids grow up, my kids gonna come first. Because, I don't want to air too much dirty laundry from growing up because I don't want to come off disrespectful to my mother's memory. I'm just going to say that there were times when other people and other children were put first and I was kind of left out in the cold. And that's one thing I swore. I told Joe, nobody's children come before our children. Can we help other people? Yes, but you take care of home first. And once home is taken care of, then you can reach out to other people. Now, don't get me wrong. My kids can tell you I invited all the kids in the neighborhood into our house to be part of our family, to have fun together, so to speak. I hate that angle, Joe. But they always came first. So I honestly don't remember if I had talked to Joe about that before it triggered. Did I ever talk to you about that? Do you remember?
No, you pretty much, once you were triggered by it. And then,
okay.
Oh, you talking about your mother?
Yeah. Did I talk about that aspect? I don't remember if I ever did.
Yes, okay. You did talk about it. And I had even mentioned to Miriam, I didn't even grow up in Winston-Salem, but whenever I would meet people around my age or around Miriam's age, and I would tell them that my wife was from this area, and they said, "Oh, really?" And I would tell them her name. Sometimes they would know her by name, but sometimes, a lot of times, they wouldn't.
Or you mentioned Miss Fraser's Candy.
And I would mention the candy house on Ivy Avenue, and their faces, most of them faces would light up, and I actually say that her mother has an awesome legacy.
Yes, she does.
As far as the neighborhood children, and how that house was a safe haven, that they would stay there until their parents came and picked them up from work, and they would just stay outside the house playing
video game. Well, they were pinball machines back then, so and watching TV.
And so that house wasn't just a candy house; it was like a safe haven. It was like a place where children could just hang out and feel safe until their parents were able to come pick them up. And I didn't grow up in that household, of course, but I can imagine the feeling of that Miriam went through as far as feeling like other children were put before her. And I can see how that triggered her when I made that statement at church. So I understand that.
Okay. And talking about your experiences before you get triggered. Now, there were many things that Joe and I did talk about that happened during our childhoods that that were issues. We talked about those things. So everything wasn't a trigger that I went off. Joe had triggers. I never will forget. Joshua was itty bitty, and he needed some shoes, and you remember I just bought. We had no money. I went to Family Dollar and got him a pair of black shoes. You remember that? And Joe, take them back. My child is not wearing that. And I'm sitting there going, well, okay, what did I do? And you can tell them why, if you remember.
Well, I remember, and this is not putting, my mother down, my father down.
No, because they were doing the best they could.
Yeah, they were doing the best they could. But because I did grow up in a big family, I'm the oldest of 6 children. And so my mother had to make money stretch. And so I grew up on Kmart special shoes, and those shoes, they only look good for about maybe a day or so. Yeah. Then after that, they look like trash. And I was like, wait a minute, my children are not gonna grow up on these wearing these cheap shoes. They're gonna have some quality shoes on their feet. And so that was a trigger for me.
Yeah, he went as far as to say I would wear them one day, and after walking, the patent leather would crack. And I was like, okay, baby, I could not get those shoes back to the store fast enough. Okay, set boundaries. If dysfunctional family patterns still exist in your extended family, set clear boundaries to protect your marriage. Prioritize your spouse and create safe emotional environments together. And prioritizing your spouse is one of those things I'm passionate about. Means you cleave to your wife. The word says, in effect, the man leaves, he cleaves to his wife. Husband's mama can't be telling him what to do, trying to control his household, and wife's mama can't do the same thing.
That's right.
And I believe that that's why, the whole thing about mother-in-laws and the issues that mother-in-laws have with their daughter-in-laws, because so many mothers try to control even after their children are born. And one thing that my kids' spouses would tell you, I back off. David actually asked several months ago, why don't you ever come around? I think I told y'all about this. And I said, well, 1, y'all are newlyweds. I don't want to interrupt anything. And 2, I don't need to constantly be up in your business, up in your house. And our other son is married to Savannah. She loves the fact that I'm not always up in their space. Because you have got to let a marriage grow. And a marriage cannot grow if You are constantly in your child's face and in your child's business. When Stephen and Savannah first got married, Stephen still called me all the time to talk. But as time went on, and I would say, well, Stephen, you need to talk to Savannah about this. I make, comments like that. Or she would call me and I said, no, this is something that y'all need to talk about together. And they had been married, not quite a year. And I knew they were doing better. And I was talking to Savannah and I said, y'all are doing good. He's confiding in you more. And she said, how do you know? I said, because he doesn't call me as much. Because even with the phone calls, I would always circle it back to, you need to talk to your wife. This is something y'all need to discuss. And it's so funny. This tickled me. When Stephen first went into the military, he made me his beneficiary on the insurance policies and all this. And after he got married, he called me. He said, Mama. I was like, yes, baby, what's wrong? He said, I've got to go change my beneficiary. And I'm going to have to change that to Savannah's name. And I went, of course you do. That's your wife.
Yeah, that's right.
And he said, well, I didn't want you to be upset. And I was like, honey, that's your wife. I never expected to get a hold of that money. You better put it in her name. Because I am, Joe tell you, I am all about setting boundaries. Mm-hmm. And those boundaries they go for mother-in-law, father-in-law, brother, sister-in-law, brother-in-law. You have to set boundaries. And especially if you've had great dysfunction in your family, you got to set those boundaries. Because I know for Joe and me, we tried so hard not to bring our crap into our marriage. And I remember one time I had told Joe something about what Mama did, and he caught me just going off, and it was just Hannah and Joshua at the time. And he said, Miriam. I was like, what? He said, from what you told me, you sound like your mama. And I was like, oh God. And they were just itty bitty. They were little. And I went back to them and I hugged them and I apologized because he made me go back and look. I was repeating some of the same stuff that my mama did that I said I never would. And he corrected me on that, and I did not get upset. I just said, okay, I fixed it, and I went back and I apologized. Okay, Joe, you want to read the next one?
Which one we on?
Practice self-awareness.
Okay, practice self-awareness. Pay attention to how you respond in difficult moments. Are you shutting down, becoming defensive, or avoiding conflict? These reactions may stem from childhood coping mechanisms. Learn to pause and choose healthier responses.
Healthier
responses. Mm-hmm. Now I know that because I grew up, I had to grow up too fast in a lot of ways. Okay. Me being the oldest child, and because of some dysfunction that was going on in my mother and father's house, I was aware of adult things.
As a child.
Yeah, as a child.
Mm-hmm. And shouldn't have been.
Yeah, and I shouldn't have been aware. You know how most children grow up and they like blissfully ignorant of grown up stuff, and they just don't know what's going on around them. But see, it wasn't like that for me. I knew a lot of adult information, and my little head was trying to figure things out, things that I shouldn't have had to try to figure out or even worry about. And one of them was always money and always finances, you know. And so now, we at a point now, when things are going smoothly in our house financially, there's very little that Miriam has to tell me, because as long as she gets the money, she'll take care of financial stuff.
I don't even mention it.
She don't even really mention it to me. But now we in a season right now where she's having to tell me, every little jot and tittle. And so I'm like, oh man, so this is going on. Oh
Yeah, and he didn't know, because I had plenty of clients and I was able to take care of things.
And so what it's doing is causing my nervous system. We'll learn about this later. I'm just gonna mention it though. My nervous system to fire up in this area more than usual, and I'm finding myself, every waking moment, if I have like just a little bit of time, I'm like, okay, let me go ahead and make some money. Oh, let me go ahead and make some more money. It's like that. It's like kind of, I'm always focusing on, okay, I need to keep money in the pot, and just keep money coming, keep money in the pot, and that goes back to my childhood, and back to that trauma of growing up, to where always wondering, okay, are we gonna have enough? Are we gonna have enough? Is my mother gonna be all stressed out over this bill, over that bill? And so it was just a lot, And so I just wanted to mention that. Maybe somebody listening can relate to what I'm saying.
Yeah, I remember after my mom had her, this was born in 77. So this is around about 78 or so. My mom had a stroke. And then not long after that, my daddy had a heart attack. And so there was no money coming into the house, and except for my sister Dimple. She worked at a place that I don't even think exists anymore, called Catherine's Stout Shop. All the money that we had coming in was from there. And we were so broke that we couldn't even buy toilet paper. We would go to restaurants and get napkins to use for toilet paper. And just like we went somewhere, because I remember about 2 or 3 miles from my house there was a Bojangles. I used to go to Bojangles, walk in, get napkins. And that stuck with me. And this is no exaggeration. Up to about until about 25 years ago, I still had a dresser that had napkins in it. That even after the kids came, I would get extra napkins, because I was like, oh, I ain't never going to be without something to wipe my butt. And I never will forget the Holy Spirit. I opened up the drawer, and the kid's godmother, Karen Oldham Griffin, she said, Mary, why do you keep these? I said, because I'm never going to be without. I'm never going to be without. And she was like, you don't need to do this anymore. And it literally, I had to say to myself, and y'all may find it funny, but it wasn't funny. You're going to have toilet paper. You don't have to worry. You can let go of the napkins. Because this went on for a very long time. And when I finally let go of the napkins, so to speak, it was like because I had held on to that time in my life where the only money coming in was from my sister Dimples. Mama had her stroke because we ran the neighborhood store. Daddy had his heart attack. And it was like, was it Gone with the Wind? I'll never go hungry again. No, it's like I ain't never going to have nothing not to wipe my butt again. So, but that's trauma.
Yeah.
That's trauma from being a child. And we went through a time where in my neighborhood, we had the houses on either side of us that had roaches. And, you would get rid of the roaches in one house and they just come over to the other house until the insecticide had worn out. And that's another one of my pet peeves. I ain't having a bunch of insects in my house. I ain't, nope. And with spring coming and ant season is going to be here, I will have traps all over the place because that was a trauma, having to deal with roaches. And my mama's house wasn't dirty. It wasn't that. It was just that's the way it was. And I remember the thing that mama did that really just got rid of them during my growing up years. And it was like, whew, you know, and once she was able to get rid of them, that caused a whole new issue. But anyway, those little things that happen in your childhood that become coping mechanisms. My going to restaurants, having napkins was a coping mechanism. And when I come across like the thing with the ants and all this, I'll tell Joe, okay, we got to get rid of these, and I have to calm myself down because it's nature. Mm-hmm. It's nature. So, but you know, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, it's March. I need to go to Lowe's or wherever and get the the ant baits that I know that work well. So within the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be putting down those ant baits because I can't deal with it, and that's a trigger. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I have the same trigger because I grew up with that type thing too. Boy, I can't. Ooh. I can even see it in my head, but flying roaches. Oh, that's the worst. Mm-hmm. That's the worst. And
we didn't have many of those.
Yeah, ooh, I'm telling you. And like she said, if your neighbor was having her house fumigated, then they would come to
next house. They go over.
Yeah, they keep coming to you.
They cross over like, okay, I'll be back.
Yeah. And I remember growing up, we had a hole up under our sink in the kitchen, and this was very traumatizing as a child. I remember a big field rat coming up through the hole up under the sink, getting into the kitchen. And I remember there was something, I kept hearing something like a baby crying. I was like, what in the world? I said, it sounds like a baby crying. And we were trying to figure out where it was coming from. And I remember, and my dad wasn't at home, and I remember my mom went in the kitchen, opened up the sink door underneath the sink door, and that big old field rat coming out. Boy, we took off. We took off, and my mom closed off the kitchen, mm-hmm. and she beat that field rat to death with a broom.
She was protecting her babies.
She was mm-hmm. protecting us. Mm-hmm. And I will never forget that. That was like so traumatizing. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder if I'm going to be brave enough at some point that if some wild animal got in my house, am I going to...
I love this man, but if it's a big bug, I'm like, okay, baby, I'm coming. I killed it for you, boo-boo.
Well, I beat that sucker to death. But I'm gonna tell you something about me. Yes, I do have my fears, mm-hmm. but when the rubber meets the road, I just take a deep breath and do what I have to do.
What he has to do, yeah, and then he freaks out.
Yeah, I just have to, yeah, because I've cut many of snakes' heads off in the yard. So, yeah, and I hate snakes, but I just wanted to share that because she mentioned hers. I was like, man, I have some very traumatizing memories as a child growing up.
Yeah. Okay. Seek therapy both individually and together. Professional counseling can help unpack deep-rooted issues and teach you both how to navigate the impact of the trauma. Therapy can also give your spouse tools to support your healing without taking on the role of being a fixer. And that's me. I'm a fixer. And that's why I have totally loved Healing Hearts at Central Triad Church. It's a 12-week session, and you learn about those traumas, how to dig them out, how to respond to them, how to heal from them. As I said, like what happened back in September with Joe and me, within about 6 weeks after taking the test and learning the class and learning how to dissect and everything, I let that thing go. It was like, okay, yeah, I felt like he betrayed me. I felt like he was wrong, but I also had to figure out why I felt it was wrong and why I felt betrayed. So yeah, And if you all live in the Winston-Salem, Greensboro, High Point area, I invite you to Central Triad Church, and I invite you to sign up for the Healing Hearts class, because I have seen and heard some of the most heartbreaking things, and I have literally spiritually experienced watching people be set free. When my daughter brought up me going with her, I was like, nah, baby, I dealt with my demons. They're in the closet. And that is where I have found out, no, they're not in the closet. They're just under the surface. Okay. Number 6, rewrite the narrative. Just because you come from dysfunction doesn't mean that your marriage is doomed. Make a conscious decision to create a different legacy, one of love, trust, and emotional safety. When I was pregnant with Hannah back in '94, they thought that she could have been a twins. I think I've told y'all this before. And I went up we were going to Praise Assembly Christian Center then, and John Stanko from Integrity Music was ministering. He was our guest speaker. And I went up for prayer because I wanted to know if I was carrying 2 babies, because Lord have mercy, I looked like I was carrying at least 2. And this man laid hands on me. And he dropped his hands and he just looked at me. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? He said, you are not your mama, and your husband is not his daddy. I broke. When I tell you I broke down. Big pregnant, about falling on the floor, because that was one thing that Joe and I had always talked about. I didn't want to be Mae Frazier. He didn't want to be Joe Willis. And God had made me realize that we were so busy trying not to be our parents that we hadn't even discovered who we were. And that opened up adventure.
Yeah.
And finding out who we were. And we said we didn't want to do this. We wanted to rewrite the narrative, but we were doing it by just saying, I'm not going to be that person. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. Instead of discovering who we were in the process. So, rewrite the narrative, but be honest.
Yes.
Talk it out. Okay. But also another thing, this was Earl Polk, and this was back in about 1990, before he died. He was at the cathedral at Chapel Hill in Atlanta. And I never will forget, he said, no matter whether you had good parents or bad parents, attentive parents or unattentive parents, there is something about that parent that was good and redeeming.
Yes.
And I sat down and I was like, and that really struck me. I remember I was literally doing my hair, and when he said that, and I was doing my hair, I slowed down and I said, Mama was good with her hands. My mama was good with her hands. My mama painted. My mama did, she would paint our house. If something needed to be painted, Mama painted it. She would go to the store, get the paint. Mama would take care of it. Mama was great with her hands, very crafty. Mama could sew. Mama used to do hair. And so I thought about all of that. And I said, God, I'm going to cultivate those things in me. Those good things that she did. Even though I felt neglected, she was still a type of person that reached out. And I cultivated that inside me. As long as family is taken care of, my kids don't need for anything, let's reach out. Let's take care of other people. And that was one of those sermons that changed my life. I started doing stuff. My best friend at the time, Pat, got married, and we had paid for this outfit for our son to be a ring bearer, and not too long later a Christmas program came up and he needed this and he needed that, and I took that outfit from Pat's wedding and I changed it into a completely different outfit so it would fit the character. And Joe can tell you, when the house needs painting, Miriam would go to it, not even worry about it. And doing hair, that is something I learned to braid hair. Well, I already knew how to cornrow hair, but I learned to braid hair. And for years, I made extra income off of that, just like my mama. So no matter how dysfunctional or how good your parents were, whatever, there are things that they showed you that were good, and you can embrace those things.
That's right. What's the next one?
Prioritize emotional intimacy.
Okay, prioritize emotional intimacy. Learn how to connect on an emotional level, not just physically or through daily routines. Small acts of kindness, vulnerability, and affirming words can rebuild trust and security.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes. We talked about that in our earlier videos, how Joe and we do little things for each other. It was one of our really early videos where we talked about the fact that Joe will talk to me about something and he will think that I don't remember. And I remember. I take mental notes, and he will come home and find something sitting on his side of the bed or something like that. Affirming words that build trust in security. Now, affirming words are good, but make sure you're following up those affirming words with action. Because people can talk a good game and say, I love you, this, you, that, and still treat you like crap.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they don't love you. It could be that they didn't know how to show love. All they ever saw was arguing and this and that. And so for them, that is love. So yeah, make sure that your words of affirmation are followed up with actions. And what I love about marriage, and you have a good marriage, is vulnerability. There are things that you show your spouse, whether it's tears, something that you're going through, that the world will never see. If you are not able to be vulnerable, show that emotion, show the tired, show the anger, show the I don't know what to do. That's part of intimacy. Show that intimacy and make sure that your marriage partner knows that you're not going to go out and talk about it. Oh yeah, girl, you know what he did? He broke down crying. He did. He was like a little sissy, like a little boy. No. Because we had a situation a couple of weeks ago where Joe and I were laying in bed, and it was a very heated fellowship, and I was trying to make a point, and I started crying, and I was mad at myself because I started crying. I was like, what are you crying for? But that's what intimacy and vulnerability is about. Practice patience and grace. Healing is not a linear journey. Be patient with yourself and your spouse as you both navigate the process. Give each other grace when old patterns resurface. It's not like this. It's...
Yep.
Yeah. Because it's not going to heal overnight.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like a carousel.
Yeah.
Like
you mean a roller coaster?
Well, I'm saying a carousel going round and round in circles. It
seems
like everything just keeps coming back around,
cycling back around, like the children of Israel.
Yeah,
walking around that mountain for 40 years.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to walk around a mountain until you get tired of seeing that mountain.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
Until you're willing to look at.
I've been seeing this same scenery over and over again. We've been around this. We passed this same tree around this mountain each time. I'm tired of. Okay, you have to get like that old saying, sick and tired of being sick and tired. Okay, and you have to be patient with each other until either you or your spouse get to that point where they get sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so where we're at now.
Number 9.
Surround yourself with healthy, supportive.
Wait a minute. So the title: Cultivate a support system.
A support system. Surround yourself with healthy, supportive couples or mentors who can encourage you and offer wisdom. Yes, that's very important, because if you surround yourself with people that are either they're in the same place you are, worse off than you, that's not going to help you. You need people
who have been there,
done that,
traveled the road,
and that can help you, that can support you in whatever struggles of life that you have.
People that you can be yourself with, that you don't have to play the game with. People that you can be intimate with as a couple, somebody to go to. It's been 13 years ago now, when we used to hold the marriage group here at our house, and there were 2 other couples that were steady that came. That was a close-knit group because we held each other accountable. We talked about things that were, because some things are just the human experience. We talked about those things. I miss those marriage groups. Like one of the men in the group, he went to be with the Lord about 3 or 4 years ago. But I miss those times, because we knew that when we came together every other Friday night, we knew that we were going to have a good time. We knew that there were going to be things talked about that we wouldn't necessarily talk about with other people. But we knew that was a safe place to talk. Okay. Pray and invite God into the process, especially if you're a Christian. Okay. Surrendering your wounds to God and allowing Him to redefine what love looks like can be a powerful part of the healing journey. Because I mentioned earlier, if you don't know and all you do is fuss and fight and fuss and all this kind of thing, and that's love to you, God's going to have to show you how to redefine love. How to be able to come to each other and talk and speak. Yeah, they're going to be hard conversations, but how to cultivate your marriage and your relationship through those conversations.
And just understand that in your redefining what love looks like, you're going to have to go through the refiner's fire.
Yes.
And as you know for yourself, fire, doesn't feel good. But when you come out, you're going to be in a much better place in a state.
Okay. Now remember, your history may have shaped you, but it does not have to define your marriage. With intentionality, love, and healing, you can build a kind of relationship that breaks generational curses or generational cycles. And one thing I'm constantly telling you all, Joe and I are not perfect, but we do try.
Oh, yes.
We do try. And we have failed over the years, but guess what? We pick back up.
Amen. And now we get ready to listen to some audio clips and from this woman, and I think I've become a fan. Her name is Mel Robbins. I mean, this woman.
Robbins.
Yeah, Mel Robbins. Yeah. Mel, M-E-L, Robbins. And I got these clips from a video entitled 3 Proven Methods to Heal Trauma and Rewire Your Nervous System. Okay? And so I just want you to hear her talk about this thing from a scientific place. And so we can realize that, hey, these things are deep.
They're ingrained.
They're ingrained.
They're attached to our DNA.
Yes. And it goes along with the fact that we are spirit, soul, and body. Okay. So there are layers to this thing.
Yes.
Okay. To being delivered from trauma, there are different layers involved. Okay. So this is the first clip. Okay.
Go out on a limb. You and I are friends, and so I'm going to tell it to you friend to friend. You have past trauma. Period. There's not a single human being on the planet that gets to adulthood and doesn't experience some form of trauma. Every single human being that you know, including you, has experienced traumatic situations, and those past experiences are still recorded in your nervous system, and they are playing out right now in your day-to-day life. And when you start to recognize that and you go to work in repairing it, that's the paradigm shift. Now, I first started researching the topic of trauma and nervous system repair just a few years ago. Let's see. Let me do the math. It was 2019, so almost 4 years ago. Okay, I'm actually really good at math, but I'm not that great at simple subtraction.
All right, before we comment on that one, I want to go ahead and play the next one, and then we'll comment on those two together, okay? That way we can move through them a lot faster also.
Yeah, because we're running long.
Okay, so here we go. Here's the next one.
Trauma is this. It's just the lasting emotional response that comes from living through a stressful, distressing, scary, or life-threatening event. I'm going to say that again. It is the lasting emotional response that comes from you living through a stressful, distressing, scary, or life-threatening event. That's why I say we all have trauma, because every last one of us has lived through many stressful, distressing, scary, or life-threatening events. And what I learned during that project and all of the extensive research that we did on trauma is that trauma can present in endless ways.
All right, so that made me think about, you know how a lot of times you may have even said it, and you probably heard a lot of people say it, you get on my last nerve. And it would make you laugh, but actuality, there's truth to that. There's truth to that. One thing that she talked about that I didn't record, but she mentioned that there are two parts to the nervous system. Okay, she said that there is a sympathetic. Yeah, parasympathetic nervous system, and now that's when everything is cool, everything is calm, everything is in place. But then there's the sympathetic nervous system. That's when the alarms go off. I guess that's when the fight or flight kicks in and all this stuff goes off. And so that just hearing her talk about repairing the nervous system, that just gave a whole new meaning to you get on my last nerve. You have anything to say, Mary?
No, go
ahead. All right, so let's go to the next clip. Let me find it. And let me see. Intro. Okay, here we go. This is the signs of trauma.
Reactions as signs that past trauma may be triggering your nervous system to go on edge. So as I list these off, I want you to just consider, do any of these feel familiar to you? Are you on edge all the time? Do you have trouble managing your emotions? You feel overwhelmed by life, you snap easily, you get super frustrated about stupid things, or you're constantly taking things too personally. Or maybe it's the opposite. You don't explode, you shut down. You feel unseen, unacknowledged. You feel taken advantage of or left out, that your needs just don't matter, and you have real big problem asking for what you need. Do you have trouble focusing or making decisions because somewhere in the back of your mind you feel like there's something you forgot or there's some other shoe that's about to drop? Other signs that trauma may be at play: addiction, or feeling disconnected from others, or the tendency to just go up into your mind and leave the room that you're in. Now, you might recognize yourself in this list.
One thing I thought about when she mentioned the term waiting for the other shoe to drop. Miriam has said that so many times. Mm-hmm. You know, when we're going through a season when things seem to be going well, and we're like, oh man, this is so nice. And Miriam say, I'm just waiting for another shoe to drop. I'm just waiting on the other shoe to drop, Joe. Yep. You know, and it's sad, but when you used to, like Miriam, like a roller coaster, things going up and down, up and down, up and down. You know, you think about that scripture, I think it was Paul says, I know how it is to abound. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, Lord, this is so nice, but is it going to last?
Is it going to last?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, okay.
Because it's like the rug can be pulled out from under you at any time.
Yeah.
I admit that. And when she was talking about the different things, I'm a combination of the two people she talked about. But you're like, mentally, you leave the room. Mm-hmm. Joe, I tell you, I'll check out in a heartbeat. Yeah, okay. I hear what you're saying, and I'm listening, but I'm listening from going through the Stargate. With Jack Tilk. I'm gone. I'm like, see ya. I will escape. I admit I do that. And sometimes I'll go into it and God will say, Miriam. I go, huh? He'll go, remain present. And it takes everything I have not to just kind of go off into La La Land, because La La Land is where I cope.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now this next clip is her telling about a traumatic experience that she went through. I'm gonna go to it, but I'm gonna fast forward it.
Yeah, because that clip is more than 4.5 minutes long. We're already approaching an hour.
I'm gonna fast forward it. Okay.
You know, that's actually
fast forward it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I think you said to 1:40.
Yeah, 1:40. Hold on.
Keep going.
Yeah. Okay, that's close enough.
To the details, and we'll put a warning on this, but basically, my family was at a like when you go away with a bunch of families. So a bunch of families went away together, and we were all skiing together, and we were in this house that somebody rented, and all the kids were in this massive bunk room. And I woke up in the middle of the night as a 4th grader on the bottom bunk, and an older kid was on top of me. That's what happened. And this is going to sound like a weird thing to say, but it's not even like it was a scary thing. It was more that it was like confusing. I mean, here I am like this little 4th grader. I don't know what the hell's going on. I wake up, somebody's on top of me, and I immediately have this flood of adrenaline. This alarm went off in my body. Something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. And I rolled over on my right, and I did what experts call possuming. I left my body. I don't even know how it ended. Like, I wasn't even in my body. That was my response to this situation. And so the next morning, I woke up and I hid underneath the sheets. And, you know, in my little 4th grade brain, I couldn't, like, really process what had happened. Because it was really confusing. It was like, was that I don't know what happened. I just know that it was bad. But, I did like that, you know. And immediately when something like that happens, when you're little, you do not have the ability to go, that person screwed up. You basically aim it back at you and go, I must have screwed up. And so I hide under the sheets and I wait for all the kids to, you know, clomp downstairs. And I think everybody is left to head off to ski. And I can hear some of the moms downstairs. So I'm like, okay, coast is clear. And I throw the blankets off and I go scampering downstairs, and I immediately see my mom. And she was standing there cooking pancakes, and she had a spatula in her hand. I'll never forget this. And she goes, how'd you sleep? And I was about to tell her. I was literally about to blurt it out. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw the older kid who did it. And keep in mind, I didn't even really know what it was, because I had so blocked it out. And I felt another wave of anxiety and alarm and panic hit me. and I left my body again. Like I just peace out of the body. I'm not going to be here when this, because I knew what my mother would do. My mom is awesome, and she's a farm gal. She would have taken that spatula and hit that kid into next week. I mean, there would have been some major you-know-what that went down.
All right, ma'am, you want to comment on that one?
That one hit too close to home. I can't talk about it.
Can't talk about it?
Can't talk about that right now. That one hit too close to home.
Okay, so let's go to the next one.
I had to blurt it out. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw the older kid who did it. And keep in mind, I didn't even really know what it was because I had so blocked it out. And I felt another wave of anxiety and alarm and panic hit me. And I left my body again. Like I just peace out of the body. I'm not going to be here when this, because I knew what my mother would do. My mom is awesome, and she's a farm gal. She would have taken that spatula and hit that kid into next week. I mean, there would have been some major you-know-what that went down. But I didn't know what the kid was going to do. And so as I feel the alarm in my body go off, standing there in that kitchen, I am desperate to tell my mom what happened. But my nervous system fired up and I froze. And I lied. I said, fine. And in that moment, nothing bad happened. See, that's the thing about our responses to trauma. I was just trying to protect myself from something bad happening. The alarm goes off. I don't know what's going to happen. And so I just did the first thing that I felt like doing, which was lying, keeping the peace. But at that point forward, that's when I got locked into a trauma pattern. Right there. That's when the wiring inside of me started to flicker. That moment.
Oh, hold on a second. Let me go back. So what got me is when she said, she acknowledged when the pattern started, when she shut down and she was willing to just keep the peace instead of facing the problem, the issue, and so that's what started the pattern in her life. That pattern of trauma. Okay, now this is the last of Mel's clips.
There. That's when the wiring inside of me started to flicker. That moment. See, trauma, as you now know, is any single experience that triggers the emotional alarm system to go off inside your body. So let me unpack this. For example, when I woke up as a fourth grader and found the older kid on top of me, of course the alarm system rang in my body. That right there is a trauma experience. I also experienced trauma a second time standing in the kitchen because when my mom turned around and asked me, "How'd you sleep, honey?" That wasn't traumatic. It was when I saw the kid in the room. Ooh, the alarm sounded inside my body again. Danger, danger, danger. And that's what trauma is. It is any single experience that you live through in life, big, small, whatever, that creates a lasting emotional experience inside of your nervous system. I didn't realize until I was 49 years old and doing this project for Audible that one of the reasons why I have woken up every single morning since that morning in fourth grade when this happened, every single morning, I have woken up with this feeling that something's wrong. I have lived with this. That is because of the trauma. It has had a lasting impact, one incident, a lasting impact emotionally in my experience in life. I didn't realize that it was due to the trauma. I just thought that there was something weird about me, that I always woke up and felt like something was wrong. No, this is an example of my nervous system remembering a situation and reliving it over and over and over again.
Okay, what's that?
Probably Rachel.
All right, so Now we're going to end with a video. Maybe you want to comment on that last audio clip?
No, like I said,
Okay.
that stuff that she's talking about is just hitting
Too close to home.
too close to home, and I'm processing
Okay.
what she said.
Now, a lot of you, some of you probably heard of Jackie Hill Perry.
And if you don't know her by name, you've most likely seen her videos.
Yes,
Because I didn't know who she was, but I'd seen her.
Yes,
before.
and so I when I heard this audio clip when I was getting ready for this episode, I knew I had to use it because it reminded me so much of something that Miriam shared on another episode. But I just want you to listen to what she has.
For some of us, hope is difficult because of experiences we've had with people where our hope was put to shame. I remember I had a conversation with my therapist some years back where I was telling her how I have very low expectations of people. I expect people to fail me. I expect people to leave me. I expect people not to love me, and my therapist showed me that that was actually a hope problem. She asked the question, she said, do you remember the first time you had a hopeful expectation in somebody and they let you down? I thought about it for a minute, and I remembered when I was around 8 or 9, and my mother told me that my dad was gonna come to the house and pick me up, take me somewhere. Me and my dad had a very inconsistent relationship. He would be in my life for 6 months, gone for 2 years, be there for a year, gone for 6 months. But I still had hope that one day he would come and stay. So I'm over there by the door, all dressed up, got Vaseline on my face, coat on my back, waiting by the door, excited to see him, excited, an emotion produced by hope, and he did not show up. I think that was the moment I made the conscious decision to never let anybody let me down again. Even now, if you've been around me enough, you will hear that anytime anybody asks me, Jackie, are you excited for this? Are you excited for that? Excitement is a trigger word because it implies that I actually have hope it will work.
That was so deep. I mean, and that actually, that clip was a lot longer than that, but I just cut it and condensed it to fit the topic of today. But that just hit so deep, and it just highlighted the conversation from today. So Miriam, you want to add anything?
I can totally relate to what she's saying. And there are times when Joe goes, well, Miriam, aren't you excited? I go, oh, yeah, it's nice. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, sometimes you're afraid to become too excited because you don't want to be let down.
Let down.
Yes. And that's a hard place to be in.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, because God wants us to be joyful and excited.
He wants us to be anticipate.
Yes, and anticipate things, and to know that He can do exceedingly abundantly above all we can ask or think. But I think that's a tactic of the enemy.
And it's a learned response.
Yes, to keep us down, to knock us down so many times that we will lose that excitement, that we will be afraid to even be excited about the awesome things that God wants to do in our lives. You know, the word says, beloved, I wish above all things that ye shall prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospers. And see, that's the key. The enemy wants to make sure our souls do not prosper. He wants to make sure that we always dealing with some type of
fight
trauma.
Or flight.
Yeah, some type of trauma. Okay, and so that we cannot enjoy or just let our hair down and relax in whatever moment God has for us in our lives. Okay.
Okay.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode, and this probably going to be one of the longest videos that we've ever had. But I know that this information had to be shared. Okay, and like I always ask, if anything in this video blessed you, encouraged you, give us a like, share it. Okay, if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead on and subscribe to our channel, because this for us is a ministry. Okay, this is a ministry. We do not take it lightly. We're not on here just trying to have fun. We're not on here just like my favorite movie when the gladiator said, "Are you entertained?" We're not here to entertain you. We are
Even
here.
though we can be
We can be entertaining, but
Yeah.
that's not our main goal. We are here to enlighten you by the Spirit of the Holy Ghost. Okay. So until the next time,
Until the next time, y'all.
have a blessed and prosperous day.
Bye-bye.